Tell me if naka-record na sa inyo, ha?
Naka-start na siya, Grandford.
Okay, so yeah, let's start. So, good day everyone. We are from Group 3 of ACA4 and this is our output for Asynchronous Activity number 2. So, my members are Amendato, Arenas, yours truly, Bana, Nulo, Magsipok, and Magno. So, to start with, let's hear it from Rika Rose Arenas.
I am Rica Rosanias Arenas and I will be answering Chapter 3, Number 1. A firm's financial position should not be analyzed in isolation. Important reference points are needed. Discuss how the historical comparisons with industry norms and comparisons with key competitors can be used to make financial analysis more meaningful. I agree that a firm's financial position should never be analyzed in isolation because if you try to do it, the business might come up with an incorrect data analysis, which is very dangerous because it can lead to a misleading conclusion. So there are three kinds of comparisons that were given: the historical comparison, the comparison with industry norms, and comparison with key competitors. Historical comparisons. I'm sorry, but I can't see the PowerPoint, but I will still proceed. So, historical comparison. If you want to evaluate a firm's financial performance, it is very useful to compare its financial position over time, like comparing two cases, the present and the past, in order to discover something of historical importance or to check if the company improves or if it deteriorates over time. For instance, when we are evaluating a company's liquidity position, then we compute its current ratio and quick ratio. We compute the latest year's liquidity ratio and then compare it with the historical figures of the company. Example, the Jollibee Corporation's current ratio. So, next slide, please. So, according to Mark Q, Jollibee's current ratio for the quarter that ended in December 2021 was 1.43. It generally indicates good short term financial strength in isolation. But if we try to think it deeper, was it really good? Was 1.43 the peak of the Jollibee? So let's go back again from over the years. Next slide, please. So according to the data, the lowest current ratio of Jollibee was 0.68. The median was 1.26, while its highest was 1.45. We can conclude here that the Jollibee was doing a good job in paying their short-term obligation. However, if we try to think again, we can say that its current ratio dropped by 2 points. It's not that bad, but it's not that good either because it drops. That's why it's very important to check the current ratio over time to see the performance of the company and to prove to the investors that the company has the ability to cover its short-term debt with its current asset and make apples to apples comparisons with its competitors and peers. Comparisons with industry norms. Comparisons with the industry norms are useful reference points because these reference points are used for comparisons purposes and so relative financial position of the company being assessed can be more meaningfully be analyzed. So let's have Jollibee and McDonald's as an example again. So as we all know, Jollibee and McDonald's are the two most famous food chain industry here in the Philippines. So let's try to compare their profit margin quarterly. So last December 31, 2021, Jollibee has 18.10% of profit margin. Of course, as a normal citizen, I was very shocked and impressed by how big their profit margins are because we all know that the normal or the average profit margin is 10%, the lowest is 5%, and the highest is 20%. We can conclude here that the Jollibee was doing good in isolation because it surpasses the average. But then I discovered McDonald's profit margin. It was 27.27%. McDo's profit margin is 99.17% higher than Jollibee. At first, I was delighted by how Jollibee was still doing good despite the pandemic, but I was totally flabbergasted at McDo's performance. That's why I learned that it's very important to compare your performance to the industry's norm because you might have thought that you are doing good, but in fact, your business is lagging behind from the industry standard. So most of the companies in the world often use benchmarking to stay up to date with trends within their industries, customer service, etc. Because it can determine the best standard of performance based on other companies' success. The concept that I did in comparison with industry norms can also be applicable in comparison with key competitors. In comparison with key competitors, you can gain valuable insights into a firm's financial position and competitive position. If you make comparisons between a firm and its most direct rivals, you'll know your weakness and strength, like what you don't have that they have, then come up with a plan that can create an advantage over your competitors. Using the three different ways of comparative assessment, companies could easily find where they are lacking, and this will be helpful to them to know what kind of strategy to pull in order to remain as it is or even advance. That would be all. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Anne-Sophia Vimagsipok, and I will be answering question number 2. Explain this statement. A primary benefit of the balanced scorecard is that it complements financial indicators with operational measures of customer satisfaction, internal processes, and the innovation and improvement activities of the organization. A firm's internal analysis will not be complete except if an evaluation of performance is done. In order to manage and attain success, a company needs a broad scope of indicators. Indicators that do not only rely towards the financial or physical outcomes of the company, but also places a significance towards the influence of non-financial operational data to effectively scan the working environment they are in. Balanced scorecard refers to the method of evaluating a firm's performance using measures from customer, internal, innovation, and financial perspectives. A firm articulates goals for each aspect and translates them into specific measures that help a company to have a substantial integration of the various circumstances they face. Next slide, please. This kind of evaluation provides a comprehensive perspective of the company's operations that drives their future performance. The balanced scorecard enables managers to consider their benefits from four key perspectives, namely the customers, the internal processes, innovation and learning, and its financial aspects. Dwelling too much in the physical attributes that indicate success and neglecting the other aspects that drive profitability will certainly make no changes in a company's progress. One aspect must not be given up in order to focus on another. Simultaneous development is more effective and will lead to more opportunities. Next slide, please. For instance, a company like Bread Talk, which offers bread and toast to customers, this is a company that can be greatly described for the balanced scorecard. These offerings generate profit when consumers are satisfied with the offerings that the company has. However, that does not end there. In order to gain a sale and to satisfy customers, the company needs to manage and ensure that the business process, the employees, and the innovation of the products can keep up with the ever changing market. But how do we do this? This can only be attained through the balanced scorecard. Considering that Bread Talk has local bakeries like Rose Bakery offering low prices of breads as part of their competitors, Bread Talk must step up their game and make themselves stand out in order not to lose their customers. Next slide, please. In order to do well, Bread Talks company must also work well. The company needs to invest in improving their offerings by research and development, invest in having quality employees who do their responsibilities well and are flexible in any situation. We know that an organization generally strives to create and work in an ethical environment where employees are aware of the organization's ethical standards and values in regard to how it operates. When you have great employees who know how to work well, as for Bread Talk, if they have employees who know how to create tasty and delightful breads powered by multiple trainings and also knowledge, the business process is able to be reached. And when the company standards are met, the needs and wants of the customers are then acknowledged and satisfied, as they are being offered with various choices they can choose from according to their specific tastes. And this leads to the increase of sales, growth, and impact of the business in this industry. Business scorecard is like a cycle that revolves around the four perspectives I have mentioned earlier, supplementing the need of one and is connected to the need of the other. Just like what I mentioned, it is a collective process. A great company won't be considered great when only its offerings are the ones innovative and customer service and employee empowerment are being disregarded. And a high revenue does not only directly indicate a company's success, especially when they have minimal customers. As such, this shows how the four perspectives are interrelated. It's like an all or nothing situation. An effective and successful balanced scorecard will start the strategic plan of the organization, consequently help them position themselves. Nevertheless, a balanced scorecard cannot easily guarantee that a company will succeed. It will never be the easy step for success, as the decision lies towards how a company will make use and execute these indicators and the strategies they crafted.
So let's move on to chapter 4. Pardon, sir, and everyone, that I have to turn off my camera because my internet connection is slow. But moving on, next slide, please. So for question number 3, it asks, why does employee turnover matter to a company? What are some of the reasons why employees leave, and what might entice the desirable potential boomerang employee to return? So we must always remember that employees come and go throughout a company's existence. Next slide, please. Employees come and go throughout a company's existence, and that is a never-ending cycle. In the previous synchronous session, it introduces us to the 3 independent activities, which is attracting, developing, and retaining human capital. If one of the legs breaks, the stool collapses. Therefore, if companies continue to hire exceptional professionals without any plans to develop and retain their skills and talent, their employee turnover rate will undoubtedly rise over time. Next slide, please. So first, let's know about employee turnover or employee turnover rate. So this is the measurement of the number of employees who leave an organization during a specified period, typically 1 year. Although it is naturally perceived as a bad thing, but in reality, it is expected and perfectly normal. You cannot force people to keep on working for you, especially if there are unexpected circumstances that happen to cause them to have no other choice but to transfer. So when does employee turnover rate become a threat to the company? It is when the turnover happens for negative reasons or when turnover happens at an unexpected rate. So if it keeps on increasing as time passes by, there might be some problems within your company that you as a manager should address. Next slide, please. So here are the reasons why the employee turnover rate matters to the company. First is there is always a cost that entails on it, and most of the time it is expensive. When an employee leaves a vacant position, whether voluntary or involuntary, there is the time, money, and effort involved in recruiting, hiring, and training a replacement. Separation costs may also be incurred like severance pay. According to Gallup, the cost of replacing an employee ranges from 1/2 to 2 times their annual salary. So aside from the cost financially, it also entails the cost of lost productivity while the position is open. It can take a year or two for a new hire to match the productivity of a departing employee. It can also have an impact on the morale and the productivity of the remaining team, which can result in a lost revenue, decreased efficiency, and increased turnover. So it takes time not only to match the performance of the previous employee, but also to earn the current team's trust. We always know that it is never easy to trust someone, especially if you don't know them. The worst case scenario could happen if they don't like the new employee. It can lead to conflicts and a lot of misunderstandings, which will eventually increase as the turnover rate even more. Lastly is the turnover can have a far-reaching impact on the brand. Current and former employees can be valuable brand ambassadors for a company, or they can share their negative experiences with their personal, professional, and online networks, jeopardizing both the employer and the consumer brands. So Turnover can also have a negative impact on the brand itself of the company, and also the negative experiences that the previous employees has experienced on your company. If they share it to everyone else, it can also reflect a bad image to your company. So next slide, please. Employees will leave your organization, and once again, that is a fact. Many factors influence turnover, which generally comes from two directions, external and internal forces. We have a greater impact when we focus on the internal forces that are under the company's control. But let's also give one example of external force. So these are the reasons why employees leave a certain company. One, and the most common reasons for employee to move out on the company is the lack of opportunity to grow at the company. It is not enough to be hired and expected that our skills and capabilities will remain current all throughout our employment. As humans, we're always looking for ways to improve. Naturally, we don't want to be like a stagnant body of water in this world where the only constant is change. Most of the people that are being hired for the first time after completing a college degree views this as not the end goal, but rather the beginning of a new beginning. If the company does not provide any employee programs such as trainings, webinars, or seminars, the employees are less likely to stay for an extended period. According to Chairman Winston Chen, training is an obligation we owe to our employees. If you want to achieve high level of growth and quality, training to your employees is a critical component. Next thing, and the second major reason why employees leave is the sense of being underpaid. Employees are acutely aware of their market value because they can easily find out what their peers in other companies are earning, most especially if they are doing work beyond their working hours. So if they're going to compare it to their friends who are in the other company, and they be able to know and discover that on their friend's company, it you will get a higher salary than the company that you're currently working in, chances are that you're going to move out and leave to that company. Although 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 salary is not although salary or increasing pay is rarely the most important factor in attracting and retaining human capital, we cannot deny that it is also one of the major reasons why employees leave on a certain company, especially that they have a family or they are the breadwinners of their family, where they are the only one who sustain their families. So money, whether in the form of a salary, bonus, stock options, or other compensation, can mean many different things to different people. It could imply safety, acceptance, a sense of freedom, and independence. Furthermore, without the employee's perseverance and effort, the firm's overall profit as well as its excellent performance each year cannot be achieved. So for me, it is only right and just to properly compensate your companies, because at the end of the day, it will reflect on the overall performance of your company. Then lastly, and although it is not part of the firm's control, it is already beyond the firm's control, employees leave their company because they experience a negative life event, such as taking care of a sick parent that necessitated a change in employment. So this is an example of an external force where the company itself doesn't have any control over it. However, if we look at the brighter side, researchers from Texas Christian University, University of Cincinnati, University of Illinois, and University of North Carolina recently published a study in personal psychology. They stated that employees who resigned for this reason are more likely to return than employees who resigned because they were dissatisfied with their jobs or simply wanted to change industries. It goes on to say that understanding why employees leave is critical for company recruiting strategies. Thus, the firm should have a strategy on how to encourage their previous potential employees to come back and work with them. So, like what I've said a while ago, these kind of reasons, there are a huge possibility that these employees, especially if they have a potential, will work back on your company. Rather than comparing it to employees that those employees whose reasons are about job dissatisfaction and etc. So next slide, please. So, what might entice the desirable potential boomerang employee to return is offering them a higher position and salary. So, before anything else, I will share a life experience. It is not my experience, obviously, but it is an experience of one of my family member. So, she left Prince Hypermart in Hingog City because her family is temporarily residing at CDO. So she worked at Prince Hypermart, I think 4 to 5 years, and after that she quit because of family reasons. Her family eventually returned to Hingoog after 2 years of absence. She is well known for being an excellent employee with a great personality. Initially, she intended to work for another company since she was given an offer, and reapplying to Prince was only her backup plan. However, she still submits her resume to Prince Hypermart so that in case she will not be accepted to the one who offers her. So when the company learned, when Prince Hypermart learned that she had returned, they did not hesitate to contact her and offer her a job with a higher position and salary. But of course, they have to follow the proper procedure, like conducting an interview or etc. So they will conduct first an interview on her before all of this occurred to avoid unfairness and discrimination. However, if after that interview, they offered her a higher position than she had before and also offered a higher salary. So this persuades her to turn down the offer from the other company that was interested in her. She later explained rather that it is much better because she is already familiar with the environment in which she will be working with. So that is a concrete example of how you're going to encourage and motivate a potential boomerang employee to return to you. But in fact, there are tons of ways in order to entice the desirable potential boomerang employee to return. So this is just one of the choices. So what's the good thing about rehiring your potential boomerang employees? Because first, you incur less cost than hiring a new one while retaining a potential employee who you know will be a greater benefit to the company's overall performance. So once again, employees are one of the company's most valuable assets. Just like what I've mentioned in the previous group discussions, employees are the lifeblood of the company. However, when we talk about employee turnover, it is inevitable part of working life. That's why not all of them are bad. So what must business leaders do is they must understand the reasons why employees depart, and then they will use that they will use that turnover to present opportunities to rehire valued employees, or they may also use turnover as a starting point to further improve and take steps to reduce their turnover rate. So that's all for number 3.
Thank you, Marie. Now let's move on to the fourth question. Hi everyone, I am Hakim and I will be answering the fourth question for all of you. A recent study by Deloitte and the Billie Jean King Leadership Initiative shows that millennials in general see the concepts of diversity and inclusion as very different. What are the implications for a company in terms of culture and innovation? Next slide, please. The study that Deloitte and the Billie Jean King Leadership Initiative displayed regarding how millennials view diversity and inclusion is very significant in terms of how workplaces and organizations should move forward for the organization's best interest. Here is a brief description of how the two viewpoints differ. Millennials and the older generation view the concepts of diversity and inclusion very differently. The older generation view the said concept in a more demographic and identifiable manner. They see the said concept as the idea of accepting an individual member of the organization, regardless of their demographic markers such as race, religion, family background, and among others. Millennials, on the other hand, view this concept beyond demographic markers. They see this concept as the idea of a healthy workplace environment, inclusive culture, that is collectively and equally considering and accepting participation from multiple individuals with different ideas and perspective and significant markers that form their personalities and behavior. Now, what does this mean? Um, in layman's terms, millennials view the concept of diversity and inclusion, in which a organization or a workplace is able to accept every individual or every employee beyond their demographic markers. They accept them for their own individual personalities, different perspectives, and different ideas, and then they involve these individuals into participating in the regular operations of the organization. Next slide, please. Multiple studies also have shown that millennials display higher levels of authenticity, empowerment, and engagement in workplaces with inclusive culture, markers that contribute to the positive correlation between innovation and an inclusive culture. Now, what does this mean? This means that millennials are more likely to engage in a workplace and are more likely to be able to contribute in innovation and the company's pursuit to success when the workplace environment displays high levels of diversity and inclusion. So, as seen in the framework, when you have a workplace that is inclusive and diversified, your employees feel more authentic. They feel more freely to show themselves, their true identities. They are able to engage more, and that they are more empowered. And when these three traits are all increased, um, research shows that innovation within an organization also increases. Hence, your business's growth, development, and profit also increases. In terms of innovation, according to authors Ketley and others, companies that show significantly high degrees of innovation achieve the fastest growth and development in terms of profits and other business markers. What all of this implies is that companies should focus on creating a more inclusive and diversified workplace in order to maximize all of its members' engagement, empowerment, and authenticity, because this will lead to a higher innovation, hence a more productive organization, especially during our present time when most of the working class consists of millennials. This is to ensure the increase in levels of innovation and productivity of the members and the company as a whole, and hence increasing the chances of achieving the company's objectives and goals, and creating a more singular directed direction for the company without disregarding the members' individuality. So, when companies and organizations succeed in creating a diversified and inclusive workplace, they are able to create a focused, directed direction for the company without disregarding the members. Next slide, please. One of the best examples of companies that have succeeded in creating a healthy workplace and has also managed to succeed as a company is Twitter. Way before the pandemic started, multiple studies have shown that Twitter is the fastest growing social media platform. Although research gaps are evident, Twitter is also known to have a healthy work culture. Majority of its employees are testimonies of this claim, as you can see in the slide. Most reviews indicate the usage of the words collaborations, great people and talent, best company culture, and lastly, to hammer down the nail, a former employee even said, good company culture, diversity and inclusion, flexibility to move around in company. That would be all. Thank you.
For number 5, if financial rewards are a vital organizational control mechanism, whether in the form of salary, bonus, stock options, or the like, why is paying people more seldom the most important factors in attracting and retaining human capital? So to answer that, let me quote what Kim Stewart said. An organization's strength is determined in large part by the quality of its talent. In a competitive hiring environment, the way to attract great talent is by providing a strong organizational culture and opportunities for people to grow. Financial rewards are more of an attraction in the recruitment stage, while their importance diminishes when it comes to retaining human capital, because this is more on the company's internal management. Having high salaries or lots of bonuses won't make your employees stay in the long run. Apart from the monetary needs, we also have psychological and emotional needs that play an important role in our motivation. Sure, we all certainly appreciate more money, but money doesn't buy happiness, nor does it buy engagement and loyalty. Non financial incentives inspire and engage employees in ways that money is incapable of doing. So, in a 2009 survey conducted by McKinsey and Company, non-financial incentives were rated as more powerful motivators than financial rewards. The most popular would be acquiring praise from the boss, getting attention of leaders, and having an opportunity to lead projects or task forces. These three were more popular than the leading financial incentive, which is the cash bonuses, increase in base pay, and stock options. So, to attract and retain talent, hiring managers will need to meet workers' hiring and career expectations and provide the perks, work life balance, and career development opportunities they demand. Since many employees want to have opportunities for career development and to learn the skills needed to do so. With a strong job market, employees prefer companies with good cultures, competitive pay, and advancement opportunities. Giving employees what they need will help you get and keep the top talent that you want. Because when an employee does not feel valued at their work, many would look for another job opportunity, and not to mention the cost of hiring new employees is typically higher than it is to retain them. And turnover can cause stress for current employees. So next slide, please. To give an example, let's compare these two software development companies, Yahoo and Google. Now, according to Comparably, Google has a retention rate of 80%, which is considered an A plus and ranks first among its competitors and number 9 in the top global brands, while Yahoo has a rate of 73%, which is considered B, is ranked last and didn't even enter the rankings for the global brand. And as for the employee reviews, next slide please. Google remains on top while Yahoo is rock bottom. So the reason for this vast difference between these two companies is how they manage their employees and how they shape them based on their mission and vision. For Google, it was considered a great place where great people gathered. They showed care to their employees by getting a lot of days off during the COVID era, and benefits included a work life balance, free food during lunch and dinner, and also offering free educational classes. Google creates a fun, exciting, challenging, and successful corporate atmosphere. Their ability to engage and empower their employees has led many of the top university graduates to seek employment at Google. It has gone full in on the promise that a good work or life balance makes for happier and more productive employees. Perhaps even more importantly, it makes a concentrated effort to ensure its managers are top notch, understanding that a team's ultimate success has more to do with its manager's effectiveness and less to do with its geographic location. This is also the result in the company having a very competitive environment. Now, for Yahoo, although it greatly implements its cultures and values, and benefits offered can be comparable to Google, such as the free food and healthcare insurance, what they need to improve is its senior or mid level management. Even though Yahoo focuses on building the teams in physical proximity to each other and is famous for its various team building strategies, but because they implement this no remote work policy, or to simplify, no working from home, especially at the time of COVID, Yahoo made a step backward from improving the work or life balance of the employees. The company didn't also provide assurance to their workers in making them feel that they truly belong here as an asset. Many of them are suffering from serious lack of motivation, even though its talent pool is full of very smart and experienced folks. Additionally, their human resource department is basically non-existent. Many of the workers doesn't feel the sense of purpose that will unite them as an organization, and as a consequence, employees are not excited to work every day, driving them in quitting their job. So therefore, even though financial rewards are considered vital for controlling the management, the most important part is how a company handles its human resources. Creating a workplace where employees are loving what they do and not being burned out by their work makes your company desirable for many and acquires a good reputation in the industry. That is all for number 5.
Hello everyone, my name is Angelo Brandibana and today I will be discussing Chapter 5, Number 6. Discuss how each stage of the industry life cycle, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline can play a role in decisions that managers must make at the business level. Provide an example for each stage. Each stage of the industry life cycle can play an important role in decisions that managers make at the business level. It is very comparable to the life cycle of a human being. The first stage is known as the introduction and is typically the early development of an industry which involves low sales growth and the need for strong sources of cash to finance its operations. In this particular segment, success requires an emphasis on research and development, on marketing activities to enhance awareness. This, in general, means a manager's option is to expose one's product so that the product emerges as the standard by which all other rivals' products are evaluated. This helps the managers when it comes to decision making as it shows two scenarios, one being the first mover in a market, and the second is being a late mover. The first movers are firms who are the first in the market and enable a company to establish a strong brand recognition and customer loyalty before competitors enter the arena, making them the more up to standard norm of the products. While the late movers are businesses that take a step back and wait out and see the playing field. This approach also has a number of advantages, and one of them is the market viability, which enables them to see the reaction of the consumers towards a specific product and change theirs accordingly. One example of this is from the Apple industry, which caused a movement from the norm of keypad and brick phones to the small, sleek, compact, and touchscreen innovation known as the iPhone, which until now is the standard for iPhones. The second stage is the growth and is characterized by a strong increase in sales. Managers' takeaway here is the primary key to success is to build consumer preferences for specific brands. An example of this is Alberto Culver introduces Mr. Culver Sparklers, which were solid air fresheners that looked like stained glass that showed good promise, but sales collapsed because there were few repeat purchases. The buyers treated them as a window decoration and felt little to no need to purchase new ones. The third stage is the maturity stage, and usually total demand for a product softens, which means direct competitors are more dominant. The hard part that comes to this is rivalry among existing rivals intensifies because of fierce price competition. At the same time, that expenses associated with attracting new buyers are rising. Now, managers will then look for ways to attract consumers come with and this will come with 2 points in mind. These are reverse positioning, which strips away the sacred product attributes while adding new ones, and breakaway positioning, which associates products with a radically new category. Managers will have to decide which is better for the situation. An example using the reverse positioning is assuming that although customers may desire more than the baseline product, they don't necessarily want an endless list of features. Companies will then remove some product attributes that the rest of the industry sees as sacred. The end result would be a product with one or more carefully selected attributes that would usually be found only in a highly augmented product. This allows the product to assume a new competitive position within the example. Here, the example is Dove running a campaign celebrating women. Rather than promoting hygiene products, consumers felt connected to the company and identified with the brand. Now, the breakaway positioning is described when a product escapes its category by deliberately associating it with a different one. This makes it, instead of merely seeing it as a breakaway product, as simply an alternative to others in its category, consumers perceive it as different altogether. A good example of this would be the Mac Mini when it was released back in 2005. It was sold without a monitor, mouse, or keyboard. The Mini was a minimalist aluminum box 6 inches square and 2 inches tall. competitively priced machine that can go head to head in the low end PC market. But Apple simply suggested that it was not a PC. Apple emphasized the Mini's many other uses, for it could be a music server for your car, a dedicated internet port for your kitchen, a mobile recording studio, or a backup device for your photos. The last stage is the decline phase. Although all decisions in the phases of an industry lifecycle are important, they become particularly difficult in this stage. The decline stage occurs when industry sales and profits begin to fall. Typically, changes in the business environment are the root of an industry or product group entering this stage. There are many options a manager has to consider in this decline stage. A firm's strategic options become dependent on the actions of the rivals. If many competitors leave the market, sales and profit opportunities increase. On the other hand, prospects are limited if all competitors remain. But in its entirety, there are four basic strategies available in the declining phase, namely maintaining, harvesting, exiting, and consolidating. Number one is maintaining. This refers to keeping a product going without significantly reducing marketing support, technological development, or other investment in the hope that competitors will eventually exit the market. This just simply means you are believing in your product and hoping that your competitors would stop believing in theirs. Next is we have the harvesting. Harvesting is a strategy of wringing as much profit as possible out of a business in the short to medium term by reducing costs. In this situation, managers should consider the firm's value creating activities and cut associated budgets. For example, let's say a soft drink company is facing a decline in its products. So the company may terminate investments in its established carbonated product to reallocate its funds for a new line of energy drinks. Third, we have exiting, or simply dropping the product from a firm's portfolio. Since a residual core of the consumers exists, eliminating it should be carefully considered. If the firm's exit involves product markets that affect important relationships with other product markets in the corporation's overall portfolio, an exit could have repercussions for the whole corporation. So this just means you are losing faith in your product and simply removes it from your line of products. But this could also have a negative impact because some corporations have specific products that they're in line to, and by removing that could cause the relationships between those two company or corporation may backfire. Lastly, we have consolidating. Consolidating is when a firm's acquiring or merging with other firms in an industry in order to enhance market power and gain valuable assets. A good example of this would be Instagram merging with Facebook back in 2012 after Facebook acquired Instagram for $1 billion. And that is all for number 6. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dean, and I will be answering question number 7. What is a focus strategy? Provide an example where this has been implemented successfully. Next slide, please. A focus strategy is based on the choice of a narrow competitive scope with an industry. A firm following this strategy selects a segment or group of segments and tailors its strategy to serve them. The essence of focus is the exploitation of a particular market niche. The focus strategy has two variants. In a cost focus strategy, a firm strives to create a cost advantage in its target segment. In a differentiation focus strategy, a firm seeks to differentiate in its target market. Both variants of the focus strategy rely on providing better service than broad based competitors that are trying to serve the focuser's target segment. Cost focus exploits the special needs of buyers in other segments. Next slide, please. Focus requires that a firm have either a low cost position with its strategic target, high differentiation, or both. focus is also used to select niches that are least vulnerable to substitutes or where competitors are weakest. Next slide, please. There are potential pitfalls of focus strategies. Cost advantages may erode within the narrow segment. The advantages of a cost focused strategy may be brief if the cost advantages are eroded over time. For example, early pioneers in online education, such as the University of Phoenix, have faced increasing challenges as traditional universities have entered with their own online programs that allow them to match the cost benefits associated with online delivery systems. Other firms have seen their profit margins drop as competitors enter their product segment. Another pitfall of focus strategy is even product and service offerings that are highly focused are subject to competition from new entrants and from imitation. A few firms adopting a focus strategy may enjoy temporary advantages because they select a small niche with few rivals. Although their advantages may be brief, an example in the multitude of dot-com firms that specialize in very narrow segments such as pet supplies, ethnic foods, and vintage mobile accessories. The entry barriers tend to be low. There is low buyer loyalty and competition becomes intense. Over time, revenues fall, profit margins are squeezed, and only the strongest market survives. Lastly, focusers can become too focused to satisfy buyer needs. There are few firms attempting to attain advantages through a focus strategy may have too narrow a product or service. Hardware stores such as Ace and True Value are losing market share to rivals such as Lowe's and Home Depot that offer a full line of home and garden equipment and accessories. It would be difficult for such specialty retailers to attain parity on costs given the enormous purchasing power of the national chains. Next slide, please. An example of focus strategy being implemented successfully is Pepsi's Pepsi Black. Pepsi has a diverse product portfolio. Pepsi Black was introduced as part of their focus strategy on customer segments looking for healthier beverages. The product has very low aspartame and higher caffeine content compared to Diet Pepsi and is sold as a zero-calorie variant. That's all for number 7. Thank you.
So that's all for Group Three's ACA4 Asynchronous Activity number 2. So may I request everyone to turn on their camera before we're going to end this group discussion. On your camera, guys. Let's see each other before we're going to end this. So I think Sherdine and Shara has an internet problems. So once again, thank you so much everyone for listening, and I hope everyone learns a thing or two from our group discussion. Thanks once again, and have a good day.